Okay. Um, my presentation is about how to implement INSPIRE at the National Statistical Institute, and also some benefits that we've seen from the INSPIRE Datasharing and the Swedish Datasharing. So this is the outline for my presentation. If I start with what's in it for the NSIs, perhaps the first reaction when INSPIRE got on our agenda was, oh no, not another directive. Because all those new demands, of course, they demand also resources, and with the tight budgets and no extra money, it's not difficult to respond to all those new demands. And there's also the question of two worlds that have to meet from the statistical side and the geographical side, where as a statistician you might say that you put the numbers first, and the geography is something, well, it's important but not that important. But from the INSPIRE side you have the geography and focus, and it needs some rethinking perhaps to get these two together. But then thinking about it for a while, at least I've come to the conclusion that what INSPIRE is aiming at is actually a very good thing, and a thing that the European statistical system has been aiming at for quite some while. And of course it's the need for harmonization, and also now when the NSIs are in the middle of producing results from the census, there's this new thing that data should be kept at the national level and accessed from Eurostat. And of course INSPIRE is in the same direction, so we are sort of used to it, but still INSPIRE is something new. To know how to become INSPIRE compliant, we carried out a pilot study last autumn, and I will relate some of the topics that came out from that pilot study. And but at first, of course, the very first thing you have to do is to identify which are the relevant INSPIRE themes that I will have to relate to. And the second question is also to identify what should be considered spatial datasets, because in an NSI you have a vast amount of datasets, and perhaps you need to do some thinking about what should be considered spatial datasets. At least we had to do that in Sweden. I will go to mention something about competence and also technical solutions that we have looked at in the pilot study. But first, this is the list that most of you are very familiar with, and of course statistical units is something for us, and as well population distribution demography. And we also have a small amount of data covering utility and governmental services. As I see it, and this is my personal view, and you might not agree with me on this, I see spatial datasets in Sweden as this, you have this large iceberg with official statistics, and they are out there in the open, at least what's above the waterline, and you can access them for free. They are published, they are submitted to Eurostat, they are very easily accessible in regional databases, and we also often use administrative units or statistical units. But when you think of INSPIRE, I think you must down under the waterline, and perhaps there you will find this treasure, because I think INSPIRE, at least in the work we've done in my thematic working group dealing with these matters, I think there might be, it's not so for every statistical office of course, but in our case we have lots and lots of statistics lying there, not publicly available, We have them as commissioned services, but through INSPIRE they become more publicly available and, of course, make better use of the statistical data. Some words about competence. In our case, of course, it takes some time to understand the new directive, and we've heard about all the pages being produced and all the things that you have to read to understand INSPIRE. In the choice between to do this in-house or to have consultants, we have still chosen to do it in-house because we think it's important to have this competence at an NSI. But in order to do so, it's very important to have this close cooperation with the national contact point, in our case the mapping agency, and to benchmark, of course. So in the pilot study we made, we took some contact with our Nordic neighbors, of course, and also some other countries to know what they were doing according to INSPIRE. The technical solution, I think we will have INSPIRE as a sort of test when we are now rebuilding our data storage. So for us this will be a very useful use case, so to speak, how to manage our large data storage and to derive what is required from INSPIRE, and also then to have it out as services that is up and running and performing well. You also have to have a good connection on our web servers and also have some good maintenance rules for metadata, and perhaps we've looked into could we reuse something of what we already have, and we think we can, but not all, of course, because INSPIRE has certain requirements which is not usually well fulfilled in statistics. This about the pilot study. Now I'm going to tell you something about the national work in Sweden so far, and a very central part of that is the Geodata Cooperation Agreement. And this has been put into place to fulfill the requirements on data sharing between public authorities, and it's managed by the National Mapping and Cadastre Authority, and parties could be Statistics Sweden, and but also as we are a public authority with information responsibility, but also municipalities, government agencies and other organizations with official duties that have a large use for spatial information. And the way we have solved it in Sweden is that the parties offer each other their spatial data for official use at an annual fee, and we also try to look at INSPIRE as the minimum requirement, and we have as well a national geodata strategy which gives the scope of the cooperation to provide as much spatial data as possible. And when I submitted this, we were 21 authorities and 66 municipalities participating, but now I think it's 79 municipalities or even more. Yeah, 100 parties all in all. So it's becoming a huge group of authorities. This is the Swedish geodata portal. And Statistics Sweden already have some view services up and running, but they are not INSPIRE compliant yet. But this is some examples. We have localities, we have small area statistics, and we have grid maps, in this case showing data and population. So we have some examples, but we still need to work on to get the services INSPIRE compliant. And now I move on to the next part, and that's about the quality improvements in land use statistics. This was, of course, the most obvious part for us to start with, because there is a huge use of geographic information in the land use statistics. And it was really a good timing with Swedish Geodata Corporation, because just when it was put in place, we were about to do a new delineation of localities. So we could use all the geographic information provided by Lantmäteriet to do this in a whole new fashion and very much more efficient. And also if there had to come some new localities, we could have much better background maps for that. This, I'm sorry to say this is in Swedish, but I was just giving this as an example of a press release where we have continued to work with the localities after they were delineated. And in this case, we made a press release about buildings and urban structures. And some quite interesting new facts were published, and based on the access to buildings which we hadn't had before. So we could compile the building areas and could see that if you put all the buildings within localities they together on one place, they would still not cover more than half of quite a small island on the outside of Sweden. So we are not such a populated country, as you know, but it became very, very evident in this statistics. So it was new, and it got quite a few comments in the media. And this is another example, unfortunately, also in Swedish, but here we compiled the land and water area. And as we had a lot better background material, we could see that we had overestimated the land area before. And in fact, the inland water area was much larger, because now we had access to much more detailed information about the water. So Sweden shrinked, or we had less land area than we had known before. And this also gave some, well, pretty much, this is just a few examples, but something that before was rather dull and passed unnoticed, now suddenly became hot stuff, and the media was really interested in this. So here you can see some of the use of the spatial information. And to conclude about quality improvements, I think the enhanced possibilities to combine register information with geodata comprises a huge potential. And as you might know, we have lots of registers in Sweden. We use lots of administrative sources. So this is just another brick in that puzzle. And many of the surveys to come in the land and water use will benefit, of course, greatly from this. And some applications, such as the delineation of localities, are straightforward, while others are more complex and require efforts and to develop new methods. So just some final remarks about the benefits from an SDI from the National Statistical Institute point of view. This is the foundation for the Swedish SDI. It's similar perhaps to many others, but I think it gives a very solid ground for the work with INSPIRE in Sweden, and on a national level it gives huge potential for us as a National Statistical Institute to produce new and interesting statistics. So a National Statistical Institute can gain benefits from this spatial data infrastructure, and we've already been able to improve our statistical production process and get statistical output of higher quality. But there are still lots of spatial data sets to discover, and I think that will be a work in the years to come, when the new services are up and running, to evaluate them and to see what can we use to improve our statistics even further. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. So I would like to ask you how the environmental data are included in maybe in statistics, because statistics includes or has some data related to environment as well, or maybe how this is organized, because usually we hear the issues that mapping agencies and environmental agencies or other more environmental domain should really cooperate to provide all the necessary data sets that are required by INSPIRE. So could you maybe reflect a little bit this type of cooperation, how it's set up? Thank you.
Well, you know, we have this decentralized statistical system in Sweden. So now I'm not sure of the English name of that authority, but the Environmental Authority. They are responsible for the statistics on environment. So of course they are happy to also be part of this cooperation and to exploit from all the new data sets. But I think we could also cooperate between us as a National Statistical Institute, because I think perhaps we have the resources, the methodological resources and statistical resources that they might not have. So there's a need for cooperation, but it isn't put in place yet. Okay, I can stand here.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. My name is Katarina Bems. I'm from the Catholic University of Leuven. I'm from Eurogi. I find it interesting to see that you have a geodata agreement, and you were mentioning that it's based on fees. Can you give me a bit of an explanation? Are we talking about symbolic? Is it based on symbolic fee? Or what is the mechanism behind to calculate this fee? I mean, I'm not so much interested in the specific number, but the mechanism behind to calculate it.
Actually, we have the expert on that sitting here, but I will try to answer your question. When this started, all the authorities that have to have money for their geodata, their spatial data, said that, well, we need to have this money for putting all our geodata into the corporation, and others don't have to have any money because they have appropriation, so they can submit their data for free. But all the money that was needed was put in into the model, and then it's supposed that all the authorities and all the municipalities, they are potential cooperators, so to speak. So if everybody who could come into the cooperation would do so, then this amount of money is split up to, so each have a portion. But the portion is not equal for every organization, because then someone who is very large would pay the same amount of money to someone who is very small. So it's set up with a number of parameters. But I can inform you more afterwards.
Okay, I hope that answers the question, because I'd like to move on to the next presentation.
Yeah.
But a quick applause for Marie, because I think it was very good. Thank you.
Thank you.